However,
During
we
Depression, things
lived
were
one way, always. We never had more. We never had less. Come on, Andy. There was one standard of living. When you elevated, the bank book elevated, not our standard of living.
Okay, so you always had, in other words, you didn't eat steak more than once, you know.
He would give stuff to Uncle Joe and their family. Uncle Joe never worked. And he would give the money. My mother resented it.
Who would he give money to?
His brother, who never worked. Well, how they were all wealthy. You want this? I'd let them watch this too.
Well, that's okay. Well, don't worry about it. I wouldn't.
No,
I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you guys first.
Look, all I can tell you is, I wouldn't trade my childhood with anybody's. I don't know if somebody had it better, but we grew up with nothing. Didn't have to worry about what to eat. Always was plenty to eat, and my father always managed to get work when jobs were very, very difficult.
He planned for what was called the slack season. They knew that there was no 52 weeks of employment with holidays as we know it. It was a slack season. You know, they would have the spring season, they would have the winter season. And other than that, they were laid off, and they knew, and they had to provide because our...
So now you know why he saved.
That's right.
Right.
Of course.
Our standard of living never changed.
Listen, but we had it good. The way we lived was fabulous. We grew up in Coney Island, so we had the boardwalk, we had everything that was there. We grew up next to a bakery, which was the best bakery in the whole world. Their Russian health bread was incredible. Their cakes were fantastic. We had access to everything. We go swimming.
We
2 blocks to
the
beach.
That they were better than that.
So you didn't.
We lived in a ghetto, sort of like.
But
and we didn't know there was better out there anywhere.
But it doesn't sound like you ever went to bed hungry.
I think they were better.
You know?
I think we had it the best.
Oh, you know what I mean by wealthy opposed to us.
Well, I used to see it on television. There were
what television?
People. Oh, there was no television. I used to listen to it on the radio. Oh, we had no radio. I mean,
so we didn't know. We were happy.
The neighbor drove a nicer, better car than we did. We had no car. So what's the difference?
We had no
Everybody
telephone.
was the same. Nobody had telephones.
We had nothing.
Nobody had anything.
What did you do during the Depression? What were the families like? Was there a togetherness in the neighborhood?
Sure.
Did you have a group that you all banded together and helped each other out? Or?
Your friends, we played ball in the streets. We didn't have to worry about, you can't, your mother didn't tell you don't play in the street because you get hit by a car. There were no cars. So you could play in the street. Stickball and punchball and
jacks.
I mean,
was it Coney Island? Today's a rough neighborhood. What was it? Anything like that then?
Oh no, it was. You could walk in the street at night.
We used to go to the boardwalk. The door.
We used to go on the boardwalk at nighttime. We slept if it was very hot. We slept on the beach overnight. You could never do that today. Never hear from you.
Well, that slept on the fire escape.
Fire escape. Well, that was the. And then we used to go to Tar Beach a lot of times. Tar Beach was the roof.
Oh.
A lot of tar. You slept on the roof, or with friends or whatever it is. It was great times. We did not know that they were better, so we had no hang-ups.
I said that before, didn't I?
Don't you understand? It isn't that you
we weren't missing anything.
And now you have to go to a psychiatrist because, the neighbor had something better than me. I didn't know that the neighbor didn't have anything better than me because we all were the same.
You all had the same.
It was
kind
great.
Of thing.
Well, we took the trolley car to the train.
Did you deal with anti-Semitism in any way? Was there any?
There was, but very little. We used to go to school. There was a church. We used to go past this church.
That was bad.
And I remember as a kid, an Italian woman, because that was the section was Italian. I mean, they wouldn't hit us or throw anything at us, but you heard the woman say, "Mara Griste," and I didn't know what that meant because I didn't speak Italian. I had no idea. And then later on, a good friend of mine was Italian, and I asked him, I said, gee, many years ago, I heard this woman say to me, "Mara Griste." Oh, he says, no. I said, you could tell me what does it mean? He said, it means Christ killer. So small-minded people. You know, you're always going to find that in history. But we really didn't experience really bad anti-Semitism. In the Italian neighborhood, sometimes there was a fight or whatever it is, but it was really nothing really to speak about. And we did a lot of walking. We couldn't afford anything better.
He lived on the boardwalk.
Boardwalk was fantastic. We had all the rides. We had.
Did you go to Coney Island and
We lived
the?
there.
I'm sorry. Did you go to the amusement park and ride on the rides?
Sure. Went to rides.
You've got a choice. One ride on the merry-go-round.
I'm talking about when I got older
okay.
and I could, make some money, raise a side money or whatever it is. I used to go on rides, but I was very fortunate because next door to me was a family, the Mirrors, that owned a bakery, and they really were very good to me. They let me use their bicycles as the kids. They let me use their
Skates.
Like in the wintertime, their sleds. And they always got, they just knew the cops or the different, they were members of the Veterans of Foreign War. And they used to get, we had a place called Steeplechase. That was fantastic. All the rides in the most incredible place. And they used to get sometimes complimentary tickets. And it was a round thing with different numbers on it, different rides. And in the face of Steeplechase, which is like
The
face,
teeth
the
sticking.
teeth. And
each one was a ride.
and I used to they used to let me, give me these tickets and go
And
with
he
them.
loved their house because their house had, she would cook mighty fine every day.
But they were good. They were good people.
A lot of
They were
mighty
really
fine.
good to us.
Yes.
And we were good. I was good back because if it snowed or I shoveled their sidewalk in front of their store, or ice, I chopped the ice. And I used
Well,
to
you
help
were
at a
very
bakery.
good.
Harold was your friend too.
Harold Mirror, right? We
Your
worked
age?
together.
I just
Yeah,
saw him
he's a little older than
recently,
me.
But he
But we were very close friends. We don't see each other anymore. It's just unfortunate the proximity. He lives in Bell Harbor, which is in the Rockaways, and I live in Florida. So.
Let's go into. By the way, anytime you ever disagree, that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use editing, and I'm just going to pick bites. Not looking, I'm looking for the best of the best. Let's talk about inside your house. Let's talk about what the relationship was with your mother and your father. Anything you want to reveal, anything you don't want to say is fine. But what was?
I can tell you a little bit of insight from me. There's a 6-year difference between my sister and I, so she was older. And I'll be honest with you, I can only remember my mother being sick. She was ill for a lot of years. Misdiagnosed by doctors, unfortunately, and eventually she got terminally ill. But it was, I was very close, to my mother. Being that she was sick, I would go shopping for her, clean, or do anything for her. That was, really, I loved her. But she was a tremendously good woman. Everybody talked well of her. She was the kind of woman that, when she was well, if somebody needed help, she would be there to help them, or cook a meal for them. This is the type of person she was. She was very loved.
She would on Fridays go to the bakery, and she had hardly any money left from what they would call, they were on an allowance in those days.
Budget.
And allowance, and make sure that this woman had the holly bread for Friday, and she would make sure that she had that and whatever else that she could simmer and cook something. And she was very American and spoke as good as, in those years they were mostly foreign born. And she was so giving, she was so kind, she was the best.
And even after she was died for years, people used to see me and say, "Oh, your mother."
She was, absolutely.
She was very, very.
Your mother's
loved.
name was
Rose.
Rose.
Razel.
Razel. And, right.
Hebrew.
Okay.
But she was really loved and very, much liked. And
hey, listen,
in those days, people were family oriented. People were family oriented. The outing was get on a train and go to the family.
They came to us mostly,
yeah.
except in the winter months. But he didn't go a lot. Every Saturday, a Saturday was on the face of this earth. We went to his family.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't go. I was home alone. That's where they got the. What do you mean I didn't go? They left me alone?
No, you stayed home with her. I went with him. You stayed home. I was big. older.
So I get the impression that you were very close. You both were very close with your mother.
Yes.
You both were
but,
very.
She favored him.
Why do you think she favored him?
I don't know, but she did.
The youngest, you know, maybe.
See, at one time they said to her when he was very little that he had a murmur of the heart. And my mother passed out cold. She didn't hear anything, she just heard heart. So she thought he was magnificent looking. And she thought she was losing him. So it was very bad after that. The Jewish word is a good one. She tzitted. She shivered over this boy. And he was no good. He went up to the top floor, and he went on the roof, and he walked like this, and my mother saw him and fainted. She thought he's coming over, and the neighbors would run and get him.
One doctor heard it, and no doctors since have heard it.
But something happened in the army with you.
They kept me out of the service, the murmur.
Okay.
They kept on murmuring, don't go.
But nobody could convince
that one out.
her.
That's a good one. Leave that one in.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
The murmuring, don't go.
What? I'm getting the impression here that you can give us some good stuff on Dad. What was your brother? So he would go up on the roof, and, you know, yeah, this guy. Yep. He would on your brother. He would do stuff like that.
I used to say, fall this way, fall this.
No, let me tell you what the legend is. The legend is that I got when I was a kid that he was good in school. But
yes,
when he was out of school, there was it was like Jekyll and Hyde kind of. What was so?
He was which was a miracle.
Right.
He was angelic in school, bright, very bright. Did everything. As soon as he left the classroom or something, he went bananas. You couldn't control him. Imagine up on the roof, tar, what did you call it? Tar Beach. And he's standing, and she would figure, you know. So they had to go up and get him, and then you'd want to kill him. My father only had one thing in mind. He wanted to save his hair. So every summer, besides the cost of haircuts, I have to add my own in there. He used to take one of these clippers and right through the middle, give him a balding, you know? Okay. And my mother used to...
Hold on 1 second.
Okay. And my mother used to scream, why are you doing that to him? First of all, the sun was no good, you know, for his head. And every summer, so they saved his hair, as you see.
Did they really?
Not they. He.
He did?
So she used to say to me once, say she'd go out on a Sunday morning, and she'd say to me, see that he don't cut his head off, you know, his hair off. And I'd say, okay. And my father would put out one hand and throw me away like a crumb. And right down the middle, and I got beat up for that. You didn't stop him. I couldn't. I tried. I couldn't. I used to get hit for him.
It was like a routine, or?
My mother, there they shopped every single day. So she went down to the butcher. Look at that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That lives under my bungalow.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so he would say, he was obnoxious. If I did anything, he was terrible. So one day he said, when she opens up the door, I'm going to cry, and you're going to get it. This I remember like yesterday. And I said, really? I said, well, from now on, before she opens up the door, I'm going to give you something to cry about. And I beat him to a pulp. So when I got beat up, I enjoyed it. But at least I beat him up first. He would say, you see what I'm going to do. He was terrible.
But yet he showed, his stars in school.
He was I'm telling you, he can go on What's Your Line and what's that other program?
I know that. He's
Jeopardy. He answers them one after another.
And he has good memory, so that's
excellent.
Good too. So what about that? What about you? I mean, what could you tell me about your older sister? What are your first recollections?
Oh, well, she watched me all the time. You know, remember, you got to remember that my mother was ill a lot of times, and she was forced really to watch me. I had to tag along, and the 6-year difference, like she wanted to be with her friends. So if I was 6, her friends were 12. You know,
It's a different
Well,
world.
it was a tough
For my
go.
mother. My
I'm
mother was
sure.
very clean too. So I would have to say, for instance, he was 4 and I was 10. You watch him while she cleaned. They cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. And I used to want to drag him. Now in the summer months when they took this thing and did a thing, they made him wear his hat. So he used to go, I'd say, come with me. He said, I don't want to. And he would go, I'm going to take the hat off. And he'd say, anything, don't take the... When that little stubble came in and he knew it, so he'd always say, going to take the hat off, don't do that, anything. Remember that?
No.
No?
I remember you telling me that story a long time ago.
You know.
I know my father, I think, remember, used to give me haircuts.
But your sister was she was a lot older. Did she seem to take over some of the parental duties?
Well, she took over when my mother was very, very sick. My mother died, I was 15, almost 16. And she was really sick for then.
Very
the
protective
last year,
of him,
you know,
I felt.
The last year of her
We had
life,
such
she was
fights
bedridden,
because-
you know, part in the hospital and part in the bed. It's a terrible, terrible, you know, death that she, you know, had. So it was a tough time. And then, of course, she took over her husband, Marty.
Well, you got married, it seems, around then. When did you get married?
I married in 1941,
And what year did your mother die?
45.
Oh, so she got to meet Marty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She did. Oh, tell me.
Oh,
Well-
she was mad about him. I wasn't going to go with him anymore because I said, poor I am, and with him I'm going to be poor, and I didn't want to be poor, and I used to go out with much older boys. And she said, in fact, you know, she said he was wonderful. You don't look at that part, you only look at the good. And there was one Saturday where I was sitting, we lived to the front, we're on the avenue. And Marty, he was an avid reader, he always was. And he was coming from the library. And I was looking out and saw him, and I ducked back, you know, he shouldn't see that I was home. I don't know, silly things that girls do. And I said, well, this is going to be over soon. And my mother said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm getting to a point where I like him so much, I'm not going to be able to walk away from him. And she said, why would you want to walk away from him? He's good. He says, but he's always going to be poor. The neighborhood, the whole thing, something is wrong. And that's when she came on very strong, and she said, he'll be good to you. He'll be this, that, and the other thing. And I wound up real, you know, liking him and loving him and giving in and marrying him. So we also got married very young.
Did your mother, was she well enough to make it to the wedding? Was she there?
She was sickly.
Right.
She had problems.
She had problems. In other words, there was something always cooking where they attributed it to nerves. In those years, if they didn't know what was wrong, they said like a nervous breakdown kind of a thing.
Right.
So they gave her a green medicine, and if the green medicine didn't work, they gave a red medicine. And if the red medicine, they gave an orange. And I remember him saying once, and she always repeated it and would cry, she would make the spinach and potatoes, and he said, oh, he said, if she's making spinach and potatoes, then she's well again. It helped her out of the depression. Because, you know, she heard it from her own kids. She didn't realize. She would...
She'd have pain. In those days, they weren't sophisticated enough to find the pain, or at least she didn't go to the proper... didn't go to the proper doctors. The doctor that she went to, he was a GP who knows,
Levine. Oh.
who knew if he graduated medical school, you know. You know, of course he did, I'm saying. But it was said, what knowledge did he have? So,
was it part of the fact that she just had the wrong doctor? Did they have
Wrong
more
doctors.
knowledge at that
Wrong
time?
doctor.
wrong doctors.
She
Because by
could
the
have been
time-
with us all these years.
Oh,
She
absolutely.
almost, her appendicitis almost burst one time. They rushed her to the hospital. They had to remove her gallbladder and appendix. That's how bad it was.
Oh.
So her complaints were well-founded, but they didn't know what it was. They couldn't.
And when they
Couldn't
said
check
her, she
with-
had no way of helping herself.
How did your father handle all this?
I don't know. My father was a very quiet, timid type of man. He was not gregarious. He wasn't outward. but yet he had a tremendous sense of humor. If there was a family thing, he was like, you know, good, you know, kidding around and fun. But when it came to family, everything was like, you know, very, very sedate. Like the old style, the European style, that he sat in his chair. That was his chair. And my mother would feed us, and a lot of times didn't eat with us. It was that type of upbringing. She sat sometimes she didn't.
When he walked through the door, the entree had to be on the table.
Excuse me, there are no bungalows available down there. So if you're looking to rent one, I'm sorry. They won't rent to people like us? I'm curious. Hey, how you doing? Oh my God.
Okay, we're rolling.
Yeah.
So,
Wait, oh, so it's going?
Yeah.
Oh.
We're being interviewed. You're welcome to listen.
No. So, so you took over for, I guess, a few years, while Marty, and then you got your own place.
Remember, my mother came from the hospital, came to the house. There was no home care at that time. I quit my job to care for my mother. That's how I learned to cook. She would lay in bed and direct me, and I would show her what I'm doing. I didn't know how to cook. How old was I? And when did I have a chance? So she would direct everything, and that's how I actually learned hands-on. I once didn't put enough water, so the chicken was left. There was no soup. You know, I didn't know, and if I showed her, and I didn't think to make a small light, and she would direct, and so each time I learned, and it was pitiful. It was to watch her die. And there was a cousin of ours, that's Catania. All the family did come and go, and he's a doctor. And he said, and I remember it like yesterday, he said to my father, he said, you can't do this. You're going to kill her, me, because she can't stay with this illness. I used to, my mother, I didn't know it was like in a coma. So I'd prop her up with pillows and baby food. And as long as it went down, I would cry in happiness because I was saving her. I didn't know, you know, and nobody was there to tell me differently till he came. And he said to my father, he says, you're killing her. He said, you can't do that. You've got to get somebody in. Well, you know, in those days, you're not going to get anybody in. And I didn't mind, but I said, she's not killing me, not nothing. I have to be there. Then I learned later they were afraid that she was going to die and I was going to be alone with her. But it didn't work out like that. My father was there when she did die. And she did die in the house. So...
She was how old?
41.
41.
I always say 42. 41 when she got sick, 42 when she died. Yep.
What year she was? Oh, 3.
Yeah, it was exactly. She was operated in June for the cancer, and the following June she was dead. I was 20 or 21.
Right.
6 years younger?
Yeah, he was 15, so I was like 22.
What was, I would imagine these were very difficult times, these next couple of years, right after. Maybe especially for Dad. You had somebody...
It was especially hard for him.
Okay.
Because I worked. He was left alone. I remember I came home from the hospital once and he was sitting on a chair by the Mirrors Bakery right next door to our house. And he looked, I got so scared. He was burning fever and he was sick. He must have had, you know, the old-fashioned grip. Oh, and I took him, and now I had the job. I had to run to the hospital. My mother was still alive. It was hard. And he didn't...
I used to go to the hospital a lot.
Yes. And we sheltered him. I know we sheltered him because we used to feel he was so young. What is he, you know, not what is he needed or whatever, but he was young. So that when she did die, then we were sorry. He looked so bewildered, like, why is she dead? What happened? So it wasn't smart what we did. You know, you never know. really never know because she was crazy about him and him about her. My father was there. We knew he was a father, but she had all the kisses, the hugs, the warmth, the everything. He's not and wasn't a very demonstrative man. When we used to come, I used to bring, imagine living to see great-grandchildren. I think that would, to my life, would be the epitome. And he would tap him on the head and say, nice little boy. Now, and it's not that he didn't have his faculties. That was him. Every birthday, we got a little bag of kisses, chocolate kisses.
Was he afraid to show affection? Or?
I guess he's just not in him.
The European style. They didn't know what affection was.
But your mother was
No, she was born in the United States.
But then there are European men that are so warm. I have a girlfriend's father, my God. He could all but devour you with love and affection. So that's sometimes
It's how you're
nature.
raised.
But you want else than that?
He was raised without a father.
Right.
So you understand
She was
too.
very cold. You didn't even know her well.
I did, but I didn't know her well, no.
See, my mother's mother, with the Malamars and the cum and then the run and everything, and that one, his mother, Leah, sat in a chair on a Saturday.
She never came visit you.
No.
She was the dowager, the queen dowager.
Yes.
You went to see her.
And when you came,
But the
she was
grandma
dressed in her Saturday garb, and you came and you pecked her, and she had favorites amongst the grandchildren too. I remember I got very thin when I had that very bad strep throat, and I didn't go for a while, and I got really lost weight, and I said, it's not what you eat, it's not hereditary, it's what you put in your mouth. So then I stopped putting food in my mouth, and I got real thin, and I come one Saturday, finally, I was well enough to go. And in Jewish, she said, Veredas. So they got scared. They thought she's losing it. Veredas in English means, who is this? And I was one of her one she liked, Hennie. Oh, boy. So then, and I thought, I looked at her, and she said, and then she sat back. Dowager is a great word for her. She sat back, and she looked at me, and she said, in Jewish, can't be. Kenish Zan. She says, how, half a person, how about mensch? Oiskedal. And I was so happy, I stopped eating twice as much. I figured, now she's not, she doesn't know me, she's not feeble-minded. So many things come in your head.
When I went into the service and I came home after basic training, whatever it is, and like I said, we never locked the door. You went away, the door was open. You know, who had keys? Nobody had their own keys. Who would go into someone else's house? It's like unheard of. So I came, the door was locked. And this was already in the 50s. Things were different. And I rang the bell, and my father came to the door. And I was in my uniform, whatever, and he said, yes? I said, Pa, it's me. He goes, oh my God, you lost weight. He says, come in, eat something. The first thing he said to me, oh my God, come in, eat something. Look, you lost so much weight.
Sure.
Eat something. When I cooked for him, my father, he loves, what do you call that? No, the fish that I make.
Oh yeah, flounder.
Flounder, whole flounder. So I worked and I cooked the slices so he would have what to eat. I said to him, what happened to the flounder? He says, oh no, Abie could come. And Abie came, and he loves your fish.
Well, you guys ate a lot of fish because your father...
my father was a Weight Watcher, I'm telling you.
No, we caught it.
But he caught...
We used to go catch...
Besides, he was a Weight Watcher.
We knew every night exactly what the meal was going to be. It was a set menu. Monday night was fish, right, and Thursday night, those 2 nights.
Right, and mighty fine for dessert.
Mighty fine.
And on a cold day, you had tomato soup with rice.
But we always had whipped cream. You know how we got the whipped cream? In those days, there was homogenized milk, right? And the milk used to go to the top. It wasn't homogenized. No, it wasn't homogenized. It was the cream rose to the top.
Right.
So we used to take out and with a whipper, you know, the hand whipper, make a whipped cream. So we were the originators of skim milk.
That's right.
We didn't know it.
That's right.
So it was terrific. And like in the winter time, I mean, nobody had a refrigerator. We had an ice box where a man put up a piece of ice, and we had
Iceman.
Iceman.
Right.
And he brought a piece of ice, and that's how. And in the wintertime, we had a box that used to go out into the, because in wintertime it was always cold. Now the weather's crazy. You know? And my father said, when they landed a man on the moon, it knocked everything out of kilter, and that's why we don't get the regular 4 seasons. And he knew. He was the first meteorologist.
Did he really say that?
Absolutely. He said, and because in the wintertime, what is it doing? Like December, it would be like warm. What is this? They landed on the moon, knocked everything out.
It's like ruining the antenna.
Oh, yeah.